yeah, but it's amazing. I mean, it seems amazing, doesn't it, that this basically we can say the Eye of Ra and the Ethiopian Revolution, or we can call it the Eye of Ra and the Red Terror, because we have both elements. We have all the elements right there. We have all the exact correspondences of the so-called myth and reality. We have the reality of what happened with the elect of God in Ethiopia and the rebellion against the King of Kings of Ethiopia. And then we have the myth of Ra or Re, who at one point they say was an actual pharaoh of Egypt. And he was becoming old and weak, and the people no longer respected him or his rule or his rulership. They broke the laws, they made jokes at his expense, the very same things that the careless Ethiopians did at the expense of his imperial majesty. Now, here's what's even more interesting. Okay, we can say the myth could just end there with the reality, but the myth and the reality continues with the Eye of Ra and the King of Kings, where it says he did not react well to this and decided to punish mankind or humanity by sending an aspect of his daughter, which is the Eye of Re or the Eye of Ra. He plucked her from the uraeus, which is the royal serpent on the brow, and that corresponds with the third eye, or the symbol of wisdom, godly wisdom in other words, and he sent her to earth in the form of a lion. So this wisdom came to earth in the form of a lion. I think here they're referring to Sekhmet. Here, now she waged war on humanity, slaughtering thousands until the fields were awash with human blood. Now in Ethiopia they call it the Red Terror. The Red Terror, or the so-called Mengistu Haile Mariam. Haile Mariam, the power of Mary, you understand, an aspect of his daughter, the first power of the Trinity, the head of the church, you understand, that's the real high priest, you understand, when you understand Tawahido or real orthodoxy. So she waged war on humanity. Haile Mariam waged war on humanity, slaughtering thousands until the fields were awash of human blood, the black lion. You understand? When Re or Ra saw the extent of the devastation, he relented and called his daughter back to his side, fearing that that form of government, not the King of Kings form of government, but the Darug or the Mengistu Haile Mariam form of government would kill everyone. You know, if that whole so-called revolution didn't occur, the revolution now against the revolution didn't occur back in the 1990s, who knows how many more innocent Ethiopians would have been massacred, and literally fields were awash with blood. And so we have the reality, and then we're comparing the so-called ancient mythology from that colony of ancient Ethiopia, ancient Egypt. So she was in a bloodlust, however. She was in a bloodlust and ignored his pleas. So it seems as though this revolution, the justifiable aspects of the revolution, right, against those who had already proven their infidelity to his majesty, and we're speaking about those ministers, you understand, those many ministers and aristocrats, you understand, who were some of the chief instigators. They thought that they would push the old man aside, his imperial majesty, and then they would come into it after the students' revolution. So they stoked the students' revolution, thinking that, well, after that they'll be the next one up. But it turned out different. He used that aspect of his daughter, like Ra used the aspect of his daughter. So it says that when Ra saw the extent of the devastation, he relented and he called his daughter back to his side, fearing that she would kill everyone. However, she was in a bloodlust and ignored his pleas. So he arranged for 7,000 jugs of beer and pomegranate juice, which stained the beer blood red, to be poured all over the fields around her. So this lion, remember, she was that Uraeus from his brow, that serpent symbol from his brow. Now she came down as a lion symbol, and she took vengeance on the careless Egyptians, like the revolution with the careless Ethiopians. Now Ra sent and arranged for 7,000 jugs of beer and pomegranate juice, which stained the beer blood red, to be poured all over the fields around her. She gored in the blood, quote, end quote, and what she thought was blood. She gorged in that, and became so drunk that she slept for 3 days and awoke with a terrible hangover. This is the point that we're at right now, prior to the 12th of Taxus, 2005. This is where we're at right now. This is where we're at with Ethiopia. That blood could also be symbolic of the byproduct of the Red Terror, the so-called democracy and westernization. You understand? Getting drunk with everything Western. That Ethiopia right now is so drunk. Now, I will ask those who are in the studies to consider the prophecy of Hosea and Ephraim. Hosea and Ephraim. Because in the Tinditer Hosea, it says right there that Yahweh is like a lion. He is as a lion. And when we study even the gender, we see that gender sometimes changing when there is that symbolic, metaphorical language being used. So he is like a lion, then the lion can become she. She becomes that extension of him. You understand? Acting, in a sense, interdependently, but at his command. You understand? But in this case, when Sekhmet continued, right, she became gorged with the beer. You understand? The beer and pomegranate juice, and became so drunk that she slept for 3 days. So, do we have a period of 3 days? Remember, Christ says, after 3 days, are we in that 3 days, or from what was it? The new millennium. If we put the new millennium to the 12th of Taxus, or December 21st, 2010, if we put this in connection, maybe there's some connection there. But one thing we know for sure, that this present secular Ethiopian generation will one day wake up. But when they wake up, can you imagine the terrible hangover? The terrible, when one's really become conscious of what they have done and what has been done. So it was like this, that humanity, or mankind, was saved from her terrible vengeance, or in a sense, saved from his vengeance, you understand, which had went on a little bit more so than he probably would. He felt sorry for the people. You know, when His Majesty seeing the Derg, they wanted a revolution, so then they got a revolution, but then the careless Ethiopians started to complain that it wasn't the revolution that they expected. So there's a number of versions of this myth, and there's a number of goddesses that are given the title of the Eye of Re. In particular, there's Het Heru, there's Sekhmet, there's Tefnut, there's Bast, or the cat goddess, there's Mut, there is Nekbet, there is Wajet. The daughter of Re was sometimes symbolized as a cat. Sometimes the daughter of Re, or the daughter of Ra, was symbolized as a cat who protected Re, or Ra, from the serpent Apep, linking it with the leonine aspects of Hathor, Het Heru, Bas, Sekhmet, Tefnut, Mut, Nekbet, and Wajet, amongst others. Now, the cat was also thought to be able to cure